So hi everyone, I'm Samantha Lawson. I'm a proud Latchi and Barkindji woman. I'd just like to welcome you all here today on our beautiful sacred lands in which we are meeting and pay our respects to our past, present and merging. Thank you.
Meeting the Dreaming has been a year of dialogue and events and exchanges that Jim Bowler called for at the start of the 50th anniversary of the discovery of Mungo Man. And this is really the fruits of that year and that half a century as we gather here today.
Knowing Jim for more than 20 years through my business and through sitting around many campfires and tables and over numerous cups of tea with him and the traditional owners, I have nothing but respect for his vision for an Australia that tells the truth about our recent history and therefore creating a pathway to our rich, shared, deep history. The work that we need to do is not about reconciliation. It's actually about the transformation of who we are as citizens, who we are as Australians, and who we are in the world globally. And it depends on this transformation that comes from truth-telling and comes from acknowledging the true history and comes from taking a share in the understanding of this deep cultural heritage that we are lucky enough to be a part of.
Smoking ceremonies are really important. They're not just about welcoming you to country, but they're actually telling you about a deep connection, honouring our spirit ancestors that always are with us.
As most of you know, I'm the grandson of Roy Kennedy. He passed away in April this year. His last remarks at Mungo, his last talk at Mungo, he got up and he spoke about a couple of things. And one thing that sort of changed my mind about everything and the way that we all should treat each other. And he wanted us all to walk together, not just be Aboriginal people, not just be white people, but let's just all walk together in peace and harmony. He wanted us to teach the wider community about our culture and heritage. He said that no one else is going to learn about our culture and heritage by guessing. We have to do it. We have to teach them. And we need to make the effort to do that. And it resonated a lot with me and it changed my mind about the way that I treat people in the wider community and it's changed who I am today.
I want to start with an acknowledgement. So, Yiri Mari Watungi Pukomanama Pingali Prembai Yingidin Ola Lachi Lachi Dangi. I always put this into my acknowledgement. Kia Willa Mero. Kia Willa Mero means us collectively as one mob. And we're here for the Pangur Murni, that's the children. And it's always been about the future and the future generations and how we care and protect and share and nurture each other and how we immerse ourselves and get an understanding of what culture is. Because if you're going to hear about Mungo and we're going to hear about those first important elders that started this journey alongside Jim, where Mungo Man and Mungo Lady actually led a trail to those first old ladies, being Alice Kelly, Muddy Muddy, Alice Bugme, Barkindji, Tibby Breyer, Nyampa. I also want to pay acknowledgement to the elders that immediately followed them and never lost that sight and kept that vision. I acknowledge Auntie Betty and Uncle Barry over here, but I also want to specific mention people like Auntie Dottie Lawson, Auntie Lottie Williams, Reedy Mitchell, Auntie Elsie Jones, Uncle Roy and Auntie Beryl Kennedy, Auntie Jeannie Charles, Auntie Mary or Tookie, aka Tookie, and also my father, Danny. And I think it's what's really appropriate now. I just want to read the second part of a statement that Alice Kelly, my grandmother, wrote on Mungo. So Mungo is the most cultured place as it reflects the past of the people and the land. It's a place that requires respect. It is a creation place where all things were brought into being. We realise today that this is the place where people and the land become one, where our people walk with the spirits of our ancestors. Today we look at this place and we belong. It's a place where all of our concerns and worries disappear. It has that effect on people. It's our most sacred site and it demands respect. The future of the Willandra Lakes and Mungo National Park relies upon good management and respect of all of those people that have an association with it. The children and the students must come to Mungo to learn and enjoy the spiritual and cultural significance of this, our most important place of our people, as this is the place of love, peace and harmony. Alice Kelly, Muddy Tribal Elder. I think that reconciliation has many fathers and many mothers, and that began with Jim Bowler, Mungo Man and Mungo Lady, and then the relationships they formed with those elders. Jim was out there as a geologist following the landforms, but Mungo Man and Mungo Lady reached out to Jim and said that you will not get an understanding of what it is to be Australian or have understanding of what the connection to country is unless you have a connection to the Aboriginal people first, because that understanding comes through the First Peoples.
I'll go back to this image of Mungo Man and the scraping away that revealed the remains. This image shown with traditional owners' approval, and it's an image which has a very special relevance to me. 50 years on my study wall in Melbourne, I have shared a relationship with that man. We shared that amazing consciousness that makes humanity so exceptional in the biological world. The origin of consciousness shared by people right across the world, a very new geological invention. I'll come back to us later. About 300,000 years ago in Africa, we're looking at here the descendants of the Mungo people today. They are connected to countries. The Aboriginal people today, that's their mantra of we are connected to country. Now that's something if I go back to the indigenous people in the burial, that ritual connection of ochre and fire, they were making a spiritual connection with the land themselves. 40,000 years ago, they were connected to country. In the centenary of the 1988 bicentenary, the 1788 bicentenary, Marcia Langton and another Indigenous lady from the University of Melbourne, Lillian Holt, they were facing an audience in the Sydney Opera House on the eve of the bicentenary celebration. Lillian challenged the audience to these European ladies or Australian ladies, saying, you don't know who you are. You don't really understand who you are. So that challenge, that was a response to which we now seek to find an answer in the sort of process that we're going through today.
My learning comes from deep knowledge, from the Auntie Tibby Bryars, the Auntie Ellis Kellys, the Auntie Renee Mitchells, the Auntie Dottie Lawsons. All of the elders that stood alongside you are my elders. They taught me, the next generation taught me. I'm now in charge of teaching the next generation. So I thank you for your discovery. I thank you for that beacon of light that you've shown the world, that we are the continuous oldest living culture on this planet. Thank you, Uncle.
Alice, Kelly and Grandpa, Jim, they bridged that gap together of the transformation. And I wanted to retell a story. So I was hanging out with Tira Lee, Jason Kelly's daughter, and Lois, my cousin. We had a very important discussion that came up where Tira Lee said, Mungo Man's my grandpa. And the science meets the dreaming. Lois came with a very logical, how can he be your grandpa? He's so old. He's so old. She said, he just is. He's my grandpa. He's with me. And it was that listening to learn the new generation and passing that on, the descendants of Jim being Lois and the descendants of Alice, coming together and having that conversation and learning how where we walk today, the ancestors are here with us, and that we all have to walk together. And it was just a very special moment that these descendants of two important people that bridge that gap were then the next generation teaching each other what that means. So I thought I would just share that story.
The key message is this is a place of learning. If it's a place of learning, you've got to take an idea and turn it into an action. I was lucky enough to have gone on an excursion with Jim Bowler 46 years ago when he was just a young man. And so we went to Mungo with him through the back way up to where we were, the main place. He had a busload of young science teachers. And so he took us to this dune and he got us to get out, and then we walked over the crest of the dune, and then he said, if you look along there, you'll see along a contour line, you'll see these pebbles. And then he just swept his arm and he said, as far as you can see, this was a freshwater lake, and modern humans like you and I were living here. Now that just flipped me completely.
Our deity, the person that looked after Nachi, when Nachi went deep underground and was resting. So Nachis were these creations. We have two Nachis. One is, of course, female, and the other is a male. Wotanyorina and the other guy is Yulawaru.
The Mungo story is a story not just for the Mati Mati and the Barkanji and the Nyampa. It's not just for Australians. It's a heartening story for all of humankind. It's a story of hope and of transformation for all peoples. From an international perspective, I see that Mungo Ladies and Mungo Man's revelation to Jim is full of meaning and significance. Globally, we're all heirs to the sacred nature of this Mungo revelation, I think. And in a sense, we can all be heirs to the cosmology of the oldest continuous human culture. This code of living, which has evolved over 65,000 years, is a gift to humanity. The dreaming and the law of the dreaming are of profound importance in the current civilizational crisis. The larger culture needs the original creative energies, not to appropriate them, but to create new stories of unity, of reciprocity, of relationship, and of wonder.
The responsibility to restart the national conversation lies with non-Indigenous Australians, or other Australians, as Jason Kelly kindly calls us. So this year-long dialogue has been called Meeting the Dreaming, and that's Jim's term, a term that invokes an ongoing and distinctive encounter with another wondrous knowledge system. And it's also a term that captures the way Jim sees his meeting, as we've heard, the way he sees his meeting with Mungo Man and Mungo Woman out there on the lunette. Those people came to the surface and he found them. He recognised them, and perhaps they recognised him. Science meets the dreaming, as Jim puts it. The emergence of the ancient Mungo people into the consciousness of modern Australians was a revelation. It changed how people understood the history of Australia. That's what the Mayor said this morning on opening our proceedings, and she's absolutely right. It changed Australian history. It changed fundamentally the way we see the history of this country. Suddenly, the newcomers to this continent were confronted with irrefutable evidence that the land that they had taken had been inhabited by modern humans just like them for 2,000 generations.
This is the situation today. The message from the Mungos is very clear to me. We have been here for at least 1,600 generations. Jim, thank you for letting the world know. Our remains have been revealed so that the non-Indigenous world knows how long we have been here, and we have been here a lot longer than that. So we give you this information via Jim Bowler and the cohort so that you realise and ask the question, how did you survive as a coherent society or societies, because it's 500 plus, for 42,000 years, for 65,000 years, for what, as the old people told me, a lot longer than that. People get deeply psychologically connected with country. So no one's thinking, oh, I'm standing here looking at country, isn't it beautiful? It's about being country, merging, disappearing into it, being a part of it rather than separate from it. So this is a great gift, I believe, that Aboriginal people are holding for the world. Certainly if we go down the path of following the basic principles of first law, always can be applied in any time or place, we will make Australia great again. And this event could be seen in history as a great turning point, where suddenly there was a reawakening to what it means to exist as true human, as true man, as true woman, in a country which is vibrating with great power and energy. That energy has not gone away in spite of all the destructive activities, including the mining development, big cities and so on. Australia is still largely buzzing, pulsating with that energy.
In mid-December 1944, Drysdale's party camped on the Mungo pastoral station on the sandhills of the walls of China. Sitting by the fire on a brilliant moonlit night, Drysdale's biographer wrote, he found it one of the most extraordinary places in the world. This revealed another reality and a new way of looking at the Australian landscape in terms of endless time, of geological activity and the presence of immense forces of nature which have shaped the land over millions of years. The party was in awe of the geological story encrypted in the landscape, but they were also aware that this had long been a peopled landscape. One of Drysdale's sketches was of an Aboriginal burial ground, exposed by the wind. Ancient bones were coming to light and turning to dust. As Newman wrote back in his report for the Herald, erosion is disturbing the dead as well as menacing the living. The anthropologists will have to hurry. Studying the landscape during the day and retreating to his quarters on the Mungo pastoral station in the evenings, he was and remains fascinated by this dry place that has been shaped by water, a landscape that can be read like scripture. In July 1968, Jim encountered the remains of the individual that has become known as Mungo Woman. Almost 6 years later, on the same lunette, the complete and ceremonially buried skeleton of Mungo Man also surfaced. These two individuals had lain within a few hundred metres of each other for over 40,000 years. When the Barkindji, Mati and Nyampa peoples became aware of the archaeological activities at Lake Mungo, many people, such as these aunties, Alice Kelly, Alice Bugmy, Tibby Breyer, Elsie Jones, they took actions to express their concern. They were particularly troubled by the removal of Aboriginal bones. Human remains were not scientific evidence. They are relatives, spirits, ancestors. I'll finish with Alice Kelly's profoundly generous words. While she saw Mungo Lady and Mungo Man, Mungo Woman and Mungo Man, as a fundamental part of her own culture and identity, she also invited others to share in their story. She hoped her ancestors' emergence would help make a better future for her people, and she envisaged her home as a site of national reconciliation. Mungo, she declared, is for all Australians, black and white. It can embrace us all in its spirituality and draw us closer to the land. Thank you.
I do see some signs of positivity. And one thing from my point of view, I don't claim to know much about it, is the truth-telling and treaty process at the state level. And Jason is playing a leading role in the Victorian processes, and as far as I can see, that process is moving along well. There's one started in New South Wales, or an early stage, and the South Australian process seemed to be well advanced. This seems to me to be not highly noted in the national press, but you know, the Australian experience is if we can develop things well through most of the states, then the Commonwealth will finally catch up.
So in May 1997, this is where it starts. The elders instruct the three TGs to request the CMC to start discussions specifically with a view to establishing plans for a cultural and research centre within the Willandra World Heritage Area. They specifically pointed out this: the Culture and Research Centre would include a cultural centre as a focus for Aboriginal cultural activities, a keeping place for special cultural material, a research centre and a museum to act as a base for scientific research and meetings. Almost there, 2000. So you know, on the 64th meeting, the three TGs secure funding for a feasibility study for a keeping place, education and research centre, and an initial budget of 3.5 million. So we've got the 3.5 million submission. It's put in as to build phase one of the keeping place, because they also saw that as crucial to bringing Mungo Man, Mungo Lady back, all their mother remains, but it was also always the intention to rebury Mungo Man and Mungo Lady. But then the government seemed to maintain control. In July 2006, the 3TG highlights the failures under the Barra Charter, which is the ICOMOS Charter for Places of Cultural Significance. So the CMC, the 3TG can have a person represent on, they determined there's a need for a project officer to progress the projects, and felt it's best for Parks and Wildlife to resource that position. Then the elders' vision is taken away. In October 2006, the elders are advised by Parks and Wildlife that the Keeping Place Culture Centre and Education Research Centre is not going ahead. Get this, because it's not in the public interest. We're still fighting for those things, culture centre, education. Nana always spoke about it as an international education centre.
So we'll go quickly to the Big Bang and we'll very quick summarise. At the timeline, 13.8 billion years ago, the single moment when time and space began. In terms of contemplation, that is almost beyond imagination. 14.6 billion, the first rock appeared, and here in Australia, it's in the Pilbara. 3.5 billion, again in the Pilbara, the first life, stromatolites. And amazingly, you'd never believe that 3.5 billion years later, the stromatolites reappeared. They're like a living fossil. They appeared, guess where? On stone tools out at Lake Mungo. Those stromatolites have been sent to the Mars exploration program in Sydney as an example of what scientists would look for on a lake in Mars. The parallel was out there at Lake Mungo. The dreaming, as I go back to Mungo, the Mungo people were connected to country. They had their dreaming was in place 40,000 years ago. That green diagram, that green strap, points to the longevity of the dreaming. Back to 40,000, back to Billy Griffith could explain more what happened at Kakadu, but the equivalent of connection to country was probably inherent in every conscious person's reaction to the environment, to the lands and plants, animals in which they lived. Now the origin of that dreaming goes back well beyond 40,000. back to Kakadu, almost probably. But where did it begin? It's only, remember that we've only been on this planet for 300,000 years. In the last 300,000 since we originated, we're here at 60, 70,000 with that modern expression of connection to country.
I think, you know, that connection and talking about how do we do that, I just want to say there was no need. I think that we all look for this apology. For me, the greatest thing that you ever did in terms of, you already told us what we already knew, that we had been here for a very, very long time. And it's, most people call it the dreaming, but it's our creation, began on this world, in this earth. And I think what you did proved what we always knew. But most of all, I'm ever so grateful that you said Mungo Man talked to you about going home to his country, back to his people. And for that, we owe you a thank you. And you know, I'm so pleased to be here today.
Now, I was talking about the wonder of education, putting a wonder in it. In the context of Mungo and Australia, how about putting the spirit in education? I'm going to give you a sense of what that feels like.
My name's Tay. I'm very proud Nimpa Barkajimora woman. My sister's down the back there. That's my older sister, Beltana, and my two nieces, Lucinda and Charlotte. Now, I grew up in this community, but I'm originally from far west New South Wales, Menindee. We grew up with our grandmother taking at us on country every single day after school, smoking us, cooking in the whole emu and kangaroo, and she used to tell us about, you know, our spirits around us. Yeah, and one of the things that me and my sister, we teach now in this community and, you know, on the other side of the line as well, New South Wales, is we take women out to country. And when we get on country, it's not just about going out to country and feeling connection. It's about creating a space. And not just a space on country where you can move and feel safe, but also in your mind, creating space so that you feel clear, connected to your spirit, with your body, and most importantly, the love of country, our mother, our earth. So if I can ask everyone in the room today, place your hand on your heart or close to your heart.
Thank you to us, asking for permission to wake on you dreaming and sing it sweetly with you. Here where the desert sings a story that's true.
And I was honored to be invited as, you know, a guest to share my opinion as someone from the other side of the hemisphere who felt this story was of great importance, not just to Aboriginal people, but to the world. You know, I'm a scientist wannabe, so I loved the story, the climate story, the geology story, but then there's the politics, and then there's the First Nations story and the family story. It's such a big story, and as Ben said recently, it's a very big story. It's too big a story for anyone, but it's big enough for everyone. And that really moved me.
My big passion is, over the many years, is Mungo Lady. I have a great love and respect for what she has achieved, even though she doesn't know it perhaps, or maybe she does know it. Here she was, this young woman, telling the world that we are as old, or the indigenous culture is as old as it was. And they know that anyway, but just to have that evidence is wonderful. And I just think she's such a beautiful, beautiful soul. And my experience, many years' experience coming to Mungo with the indigenous people, particularly the women elders, who loved Mungo Lady. They saw Mungo Lady like a saint.
And then so there's self, and then there's our family, and then there's our community. And where do we fit into it? Well, we're one and all the same. I can't say, there's my community out here and hold a glass of water, because how long can I do that? And how many I know of mobs sitting in this room have been burnt out beyond burnout because of the love they have for their people in the community to keep showing up despite what it does to themselves, and then perhaps what it does to their family. So it's what is and what was, but it's not the whole conversation, because the third element to that is, who are we? Identity. Who am I, Yamaji? Who am I as part of West Australia, or who am I as part of the collective First Nations peoples around this nation? And then who are we collectively? What's the collective identity of this continent beyond a barbecue and chops and prawns?
The reason we had to be here is because we realized that what we are doing as we travel on the one home journey, the one home being our Mother Earth, to every country on earth for 7 years and 7 generations, is inspired by the dreaming. It is the big dreaming of deep, deep listening in every country on earth, and deep learning from every country on earth.
And I want to thank Ben, Unity Earth, the Bowler family, and each and everyone here a particular important role, because while Africa is called so often the cradle of humanity, we felt a profound sense of refinding home in these last days, here together with you in Mangoland, Mungo Lady and Mungo Man. And the story, and that is why we produced this video already overnight, the stories that we learn here are traveling with us on the One Home journey.
It's a big thing. The struggle for humanity is the biggest thing for us to stand together. In this whole system that's been happening, I sat and asked what we're trying to still find. How can we become one? What is it? You know, struggle, you know, sit in the corner, go fishing, you know, have a time out for a while. Then found a place. I said, look to the stars. This is all your family, 2 and 4th all the time. I said, the water, it comes from out there to here. The trees, all family, all different trees, all trying to live in a place, trying to survive and look after each other. And yet we see things that are going on. Our animals are being destroyed. Why? Because the family has been taken out slowly, here and there. But the ones that are kept strong to this, to my energy wise, we call it Wulga, your energy.
Come to this as tomorrow I'm going to be with my elders tomorrow, the Merning elders. I'm from the Merning tribe on the Nullarbor. You can call it the longest cliff line in the world. And it was created by a giant whale called Mildura, and he was a white whale. And I'm really impressed to hear that. And thank also Jim Bowler here too for showing us that stuff about the sea levels. It's incredible. Mungo country is incredible. And I'd just like to share a story too about my experience coming to here, because I'm also a Mubborn Bay. I'm going to be making whale noises now. If you'd like to hear whale noises, I can imitate a lot of the whales. And this song's called Jirra.
And then one day they found their homes, learnt their knowledge, and this was the place. Oh, Dreamtime stories must be told. Oh, Dreamtime stories must carry on. Thank you. Thank you very much for having us. Thank you.
Thank you.